Hey guys, this is Nitesh. Instead of doing a vlog today, I'm gonna do something a lot more editorial. Now, I've been looking to hold off on talking about Gamergate and everything. But, things are starting to settle down a bit with that. And that's something I'm gonna talk about in a minute. Basically, to make my position clear, I'm in the middle of this. Both sides have real points. There is a lot of misogyny in gaming. There are a lot of games where female characters are introduced just to be damsels in distress. There was a lot of backlash against any female commentator who tried to speak out against this. There is no denying that there is a strong presence of misogyny in this. However, the incident that brought all this up does still represent a major conflict of interest. Less so because the journalist in question didn't actually review Zoe Quinn's game, but if he had, nobody would have batted an eye until the scandal broke. Now, for anyone who's not completely acquainted with what had happened and kicked all this off, it was revealed that indie game developer Zoe Quinn had an affair with a reporter at, I believe, Kotaku. And it was around the time when her game Depression Quest was coming out. Now, I haven't played Depression Quest, but what's more important than the actual game is the fact that this all came out and it caused two different reactions. One, wait a minute. This game developer was so close to the journalists she went to report on her game that she was able to have an affair with them. And, like I said, apparently the guy was not the one who reviewed the game. But, if that was the guy, nobody would have batted an eye. But the other outroar was far more personal and more about Zoe Quinn as a woman in games development. And it was far less grounded and far less acceptable. There were countless threats against her life. Other female game developers were targeted in much the same way. Many female commentators had their personal information leaked out. And again, numerous threats. And it caused this whole scandal. The cries about the journalistic conflicts of interest were completely drowned out by the misogyny angle of the story. And here's the thing to note about that. Let's be honest about the journalistic conflict of interest. It's not just gaming. It happens in basically every major news publication. People are reporting on the story that they have an actual responsibility to stay away from. There are TV specials about climate change that are financed by oil companies. There are people reporting on the situation in the Middle East, and they're married to ambassadors. Whatever country they're ambassadors to, if there's something wrong there, that journalist is not going to report it. The climate change specials financed by oil companies are not going to acknowledge it. So, you start a conversation about journalistic conflict of interest. Most media does not want to talk about that. So, the misogyny angle, of course, got a lot more recognition than a lot of the other issues involved here. And I went into college with a journalism major, so I did my research. I looked at all the sides of the issue, and one thing that I've seen is that the Gamergate side, the people who don't hold this against gaming and actually want a conversation about the journalistic ethics, when someone comes out with all these threats, and when someone leaks someone's personal information out and tries to get a bunch of people to threaten them, what happens more often than not is that those people are shouted down. At least from what I have seen, people are getting shouted down for doing that. People really want to differentiate the psychopaths who leak people's personal information and call for threats against them whenever they say something they don't like, from the gamers who love gaming and they see this conflict of interest and want answers. There's an attempt to try and differentiate that, and it's really not well known because people don't want to know it. People don't want to make it known because there are certain people who do not want this going forward. Once the misogyny angle dies down and there is a just unanimous outcry against doxing and threats, once that happens, and I think it will happen, the focus is going to shift. Okay, now that this is taken care of, what was this about journalism? And there are a lot of publications that do not want to see that happen. I'm bringing this up now because there was a development, something along those lines. There's a game that's in development right now called Hatred. It's been described by the developer as a serial killer simulator. And the first response to it, and really the unanimous response, is why would you actually make this game? With all the Gamergate stuff going on, do you really think this is what people want to see? I found out today through a retweet from Total Biscuit that there is a petition to the game developers that's signed by a bunch of indie game developers and a bunch of gaming publications saying, stop working on this, scrap it right now, trash it, never let this see the light of day. And, it goes on to say, if you continue to do this, you're getting blacklisted. No one will report on your game. No one will support you. No one will carry you. And your company will die completely unknown. A lot of people on the Gamergate side looked at this and said, well, right here, there's a list. Game developers working with gaming publications. And, you can write that off as a coincidence. Because, everyone's against this game. But they're basically the only ones there. And there is something to gaming publications and indie game developers effectively trying to silence another indie game developer. So, there are some somewhat blurry lines there. The game, by all accounts, seems horrible. It doesn't really seem like there's anything redeeming to it. But I studied humanities in college. So, stuff like philosophy, sociology, art. And in each era, there is a form of transformative art that pushes things into a new perspective. And in this era, that's gaming. The fact that this is art that you're a part of. You are here. Far into the future, the art is what's going to survive. The art of this time period is what is going to tell people what living here was like. So, you talk about a game like Hatred, and, by all accounts, it seems horrible. But, look at the cultural context here. They saw a market for this. Look at what happens with Gamergate. Someone says, let's stop threatening women with rape. And the first thing that happens is someone puts up their personal address and says that they're on their way with an assault rifle. Someone like Felicia Day, widely respected. She says, I don't know if a gamer I meet on the street actually likes games or thinks I should just keep quiet and know my place. This is Felicia Day saying this kind of stuff. And within, gotta say, 10 minutes, her personal information was out there. You look at the fact that the game developers of this saw, okay, this is what people are actually behaving like. This is a subset of people who actually want this game. And that, in its own sense, makes this game important. Because now, this isn't just a game. This isn't just a game, like the developer says on the website, or like a lot of people say about games nowadays. No, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a game. But it's not. It is basically one of the most relevant social commentaries about this issue. And, it's kind of a terrible game. It doesn't sound like there's really anything that's going to be good about it. But, in terms of the art, and the fact that years down the road, the art of this time period is what's going to survive, it's important. It is an important game, even if it isn't a good one. Because these people looked at society and they saw this is what people are actually like. They saw that, someone says something this guy doesn't agree with, he threatens to murder him and his family. That is one of the subsets of this culture. And so we can't just write it off and say, this is just going to be terrible, don't do this, no one wants this. Because to say that nobody wants this is to ignore a lot of what has happened in the past months. There's also the fact that this game is someone's artistic expression. It is a vision that they want to put onto the world. They say it's just a game. And I kind of think that's what makes the social commentary that much stronger. That the same way they're excusing the game being made, it's the same line that people use when they excuse massive violence and misogyny. I already know I'm not getting that game. But it's a game that needs to exist. It's a game that needs to exist because people need to be able to look back and see that someone thought to make it. People need to be able to look back on this culture and see that in the same year where Child of Light was released, people also began working on a serial killer simulator. And that's probably the most relevant social commentary about this time period. Anyway, that's going to be it for tonight. I know it's not quite a normal vlog, but, you know, I kind of feel like if I've got a YouTube channel, I would be wasting it to not do editorial stuff. So, keep enjoying the videos, and subscribe to help the channel and see more.